What an excellent day for an exorcism.
Hi, this is Joe, and this is the Filmjoe podcast, where film talk happens.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, I'm Joe, your host, and I'm here with Carlos. Say hi to everyone, Carlos.
Hi, Carlos, the mini host here.
Cool, and welcome to the podcast where we talk about films, filmmakers, trends, the good, the bad, and not so bad, all in the spirit and the love for film. So, Carlos, we got a good one tonight. We're going to be talking about...
The Exorcist.
Yes, one of the all-time classics horror films and considered by many to be one of the scariest films ever made.
I mean, first time I watched this, I didn't go to sleep until I finished the movie by 1 a.m. I didn't go to sleep until 3 a.m. because I was watching some cartoons just to kind of ease into the fact that I'm going to go to sleep in a dark room where anything could possibly kill me.
Yes, and it's incredible because this movie is it came out in 1973 and it still has more impact and more effect on the psyche than any modern day horror film.
Oh, no doubt about it.
So the film, as we mentioned, was released back in 1973, directed by William Friedkin, based on a William Peter Blatty novel that came out in 1971. And it's a story, in case nobody's ever seen this film, it's a story about a teenage girl who becomes possessed by a mysterious entity. And her mother seeks out the assistance of a couple of priests to exorcise this demon. So that's what we got in store for everyone today.
Now, that's all good and fine and dandy, but before we get into the grossness that is The Exorcist.
And the nitty-gritty, okay.
What have you been watching lately? What is your watch report for this week?
What did I see recently? I recently saw a movie called Night and Day.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
No.
Tom Cruise.
No, with the blonde girl as well, right?
Cameron Diaz.
Cameron Diaz, yes.
Yeah, Cameron Diaz and Tom Cruise. And,
I have seen it, yes.
Yeah, it's a really good film. It's an underrated film. It got a lot of flack when it first came out and kind of did basic it didn't do horrible box office, but it was kind of panned by a lot of people.
I mean, it's okay. It's not the greatest thing ever, but it's a good little popcorn film.
Yeah, it is. And I think Tom Cruise showed a different side of himself, a more carefree, just have fun with the role. And the chemistry between him and Diaz was just fantastic. It was a lot of fun. And it's directed by James Mangold, who also directed Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh, that one was nominated for
Best Picture. Yes.
Yeah. And
I forget what else he's done. But he's the director of the new Indiana Jones film.
I'll watch it. I was gonna watch it regardless, but I mean, a solid director then.
Yeah. So I got a lot of hopes for that. What about yourself? I mean, aside from that, that's all I've seen. What about you?
Then we're on the same boat this week. I saw a single movie.
Okay, what you watch?
This is Where I Leave You on Netflix.
Oh.
It has Adam Driver. And
wait a minute. Isn't that the one with Adam Driver?
Yeah. Check
wow.
out.
Okay.
No, it has a stacked cast. I recognize their faces. I don't recognize the names.
In other words, you didn't do your research for the episode.
Correct.
Okay.
Anyways, it's really good. It's about a funeral where the dad dies and then the mom gets the kids together and they're grieving their father and they're all going through their own personal stories.
Oh.
And you can tell that it has a lot of sibling love in the movie. Not in the way that's oh, it's okay, sister, we'll get through. But how siblings deeper. Actually talk to each other. Where
right.
It's hey, listen, you messed up.
Right.
And,
right.
In more sibling-like terms.
Honestly, I've not heard of this. Is this a Netflix original?
No, this came back in 2014.
Really?
I didn't realize how old the movie was until a quarter into the movie where the main character pulls out his phone and it's an iPhone, but it's the real square ones from
little
back in the
tiny
day,
ones
with the world as the wallpaper.
Wow.
And I was like, dang, how old is this movie?
So this was about a year before Adam Driver
was Adam Driver.
Adam Driver for The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's a very goofy, nonchalant character in the movie as well.
Wow.
He's really good though.
Well, I love Adam Driver. I think he's a great actor. If you ever watched the Wedding Story?
The Wedding Story.
No.
No,
No, this will be the sequel. What was it? The Marriage Story.
Oh, Marriage Story. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a
That
heavy
was
film.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, great film. So, what do you say we jump into some
Pea soup.
pea soup and a spinning head?
All right.
Are you the person inside of Reagan? Who are you?
So, the film, as we've mentioned, is directed by William Friedkin, a great director, and stars Ellen Burstyn as Chris McNeil. She's an actress with a young daughter, played by Linda Blair, who plays Regan. Also stars Jason Miller as Father Damien Karras, and the late, great Max von Sydow as Father Marin. Great film. And also Jack McGowan, who is the fictional director in the film, plays Burke. It's a stunning performance. So pretty much you have this film that's just an iconic blast of a film that just came out of left field. I mean, it's a new horror film coming out, no big deal. But once those trailers started rolling and the film actually came out, it was quickly realized this is not your typical horror film. And since then, it's yielded several sequels and a TV series, even a 2000 version, which was a director's cut, which was labeled the version you've never seen.
Ooh, ominous.
Yes, and I grew up with watching the original Exorcist. Well, it's very limited because as a kid, I couldn't watch it. It wasn't until I was a little older, like 25.
I watched it only when I was like 18.
Yeah.
I don't think. Here's the thing. My mom showed us horror movies from a very too young of an age, may I say, to desensitize us because she absolutely loves horror movies. And I have this theory that she did this knowingly.
Yeah. It's to toughen you up so you can be,
I was 10 years old watching The Ring and The Grudge.
Toughen up, little boy.
Exactly, man.
And now we have a new version. Well, it's not a new version. It's actually a sequel by David Gordon Green that's coming out in 2023. We'll talk about that one shortly. So this legacy of The Exorcist, it's nonstop. The influences, and a lot of films have tried to copy the format or the shocking exorcism sequences and things of that nature. No one's ever come close. I mean, maybe one or two have come pretty decent, but often imitated and never surpassed.
I mean, nothing is ever going to be able to surpass. I mean, I'm speculating here, but to surpass The Exorcist.
No, not at all.
Just because of the time that it came out and what else was considered a horror movie back then. Like, nothing really compares to it then, and nothing compares to it now.
No, and you watch this film you watch it in 2023 eyes or 2022 eyes whenever you watched it, but just sit there and go 1972. Watch yourself like maybe 2 or 3 1972, 73 movies, and then watch this and look at watch this film through this perspective of somebody who was in 1973. These people crapped their pants.
I would have. I probably would have been one of the people to like faint.
Yeah, and there was plenty of them. So again, it's based on a William Peter Blatty novel, and he was heavily involved in the screenplay. He wrote the screenplay and tried to keep it as true to the novel as possible. But the actual inspiration for this came from a 1949 event that was reported in the papers back in 49 about an actual exorcism that was sanctioned by the Catholic Church on a young boy who was like 12 years old or so, only known as Roland Doe by a couple of Jesuit priests. And this story made the rounds and really freaked people out. And based on that, William Peter Blatty was really inspired, and he created The Exorcist. And what do you know? I mean, what a legacy he created.
I mean, no kidding.
I mean, the novel was a bestseller inside of a year. And to tell you that it got the attention of studios and executives that the following year it's made. And
let me write a book, make it a bestseller, and then I'll wait by the phone. Just let the money come to me, man.
And the money came to him. Arthur Penn, great director, Stanley Kubrick, Mike Nichols, they were all slated, or they approached the project themselves to direct this film, but either they turned it down or they were turned down.
Did Kubrick get turned down, or was he? Did he turn it down? Because I feel like Kubrick would have done an interesting take on The Exorcist. Granted, very different from what we've seen, because comparing like The Shining to The Exorcist, it's leagues apart. Oh, I feel like he would have done a very interesting take.
He would have. Very cryptic.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I came across that factoid, I thought the same to myself. I mean, I love Kubrick, 2001, The Shining, Eyes Wide Shut. He's an amazing director. I don't know.
For The Exorcist, though, it's a tough thing.
Yeah, William Friedkin is a very straightforward director. He directed, and as far as his storytelling approach, he directed The French Connection with Gene Hackman. He directed Sorcerer with Roy Scheider, came out of 1977. Those of you who have not heard or seen this film, look it up. Sorcerer, an amazing suspense action thriller. So I think maybe Friedkin's approach was more direct and more linear. I think Kubrick would have kind of like taken it in
straight off and run with that weird idea at some point.
Yeah. And so, but I'm glad it turned out the way it did. The one thing that William Friedkin, he's a very detail-oriented director. And again, like I said, he's very linear, but he likes authenticity and he loves his film to really feel what's being, shown on the screen, that you, the audience, can sit there and go, I feel this. This is real. In fact, the opening sequence was filmed in a city near Mosul, Iraq. Now, keep in mind, back then, there was a civil war going on out there, and the U.S. was not comfortable, or the studio, letting Friedkin go out there and shoot this film. Even the local authorities and government officials were kind of like hesitant. But finally, of course, Warner Brothers, the studio behind the film, they agreed, okay, you want to shoot out there? Go ahead. But they had to...
But we will be taking a multi-million insurance policy out on you.
Yeah. You get blown up by a mine, well, we'll collect that money.
We'll collect that money and we'll find a different director. It's okay.
Yeah, we'll go with Kubrick. And, but yeah, the locals, they finally agreed to it. They said, okay, you can film out here on one condition, that you hire a lot of local workers for the crew.
That's nice, though. Okay.
Yeah, and it's fair enough. Another aspect that Friedkin wanted, there's the infamous exorcism scene that still gives nightmares to millions of people to this day.
Me included.
And me, yeah, and my cat. What he wanted, the room had to be super cold, because I guess in the novel it's described that it's so cold because of the energy being sucked out by the spiritual entity, that it's super cold. It's ice cold. It's almost freezing temperature. So Friedkin, okay, we're going to show breath. We're going to make it show how cold it is in there. And keep in mind, we did not have digital effects like we do now. Like, for example, Titanic, when Rose and Jack on
the life preserver thingy.
On the door.
The door.
On the door, where Rose basically kills Jack, because there was room for both of them.
They could have survived.
Yeah, exactly. So what he did was, he had, in order to, basically, this whole setup cost about $50,000 to set up, which is about almost $250,000 today in our system, for a refrigerator system on the set that would bring it down to about 20 degrees Fahrenheit.
Ugh.
Yeah, and so it was cold enough that a thin layers of snow on occasions will show up on the set. You go on the set and you see little thin layers of snow. So they created snow. It was so cold. And, but the thing was, they can only shoot for a certain amount of time, because it was so cold for the actors that they could only shoot for a certain amount of time.
Oh, I'm sensitive. I can't shoot in the cold for too long. Man up, you're being paid multi-millions of dollars to shoot a movie. You can survive if you're in the cold for a little bit. Some people have to work in a air-conditioned-less building for hours on end. You'll survive.
Yeah, you'll survive. Then you turn around and they're dead. Yeah.
Purple lips. White pale skin.
Oh my God. Yeah, real horror movie at that point.
At that point.
Another thing, one of the very first sequences that Max von Sydow shot upon arriving to the set to start shooting the film was the iconic shot. And what scene is that? What shot is that?
Where he's standing just outside the cab, no?
Right,
Right in front of the house.
yeah, and the lights on him,
Yeah.
the infamous stairs, and that was one of the first shots they did with Max von Sydow. And of course, it went on to be used on its movie posters and
Shirts,
Shirts,
books,
the whole
memorabilia, everything, all of it.
and it's been replicated in a few movies since. And you see that scene, and you know you're in for a wild ride. I mean, it's a great scene. I mean, you're watching this film, and you know, especially if you know about the film itself and its history, and you're watching this when he stands outside that, you know, out the cab, and he's standing there, and this is, well, this
Like
is
an eerie sense of like,
Yeah.
like something dreadful is gonna happen. Or gonna take
yeah,
place.
and this man is going to war. He's going to battle, you know. And another thing, one of the great, another great thing this film is known for is its special effects. The late great Dick Smith, one of the great visual effects and makeup artists in the history of film. This was his work. The spinning head sequence that appears to be, you know, looking directly or backwards, and you know, it's spinning around. They didn't use miniatures or anything, or try to, like, you know, do any kind camera tricks. It was all shot right in front of the camera with a life-size dummy in front of the camera, and so they shot it like in actuality.
I mean, not only the whole spinning head, but I mean, you look at Regan towards the last quarter of that movie. She is gnarly to look at, man.
Oh yeah. And again, you know, that look is still, you know, filmmakers still try to duplicate that look. I mean, with the eyes and the cut up
The
face.
scars, the pale skin.
Let's not forget the pea soup,
Ugh.
which was actually pea soup.
Oh, so you're not kidding when you said pea soup.
Nope. When I put that in our title, it's really, because it's really pea soup.
Ugh.
And there's a sequence where she spits up and hits Father Marin.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, hits him in the eyeglasses and stuff, and he's kind of having to wipe it down.
Yeah.
That kind of caught him off guard. He did not realize how
like projectile
Right.
it would be.
that he was kind of like, so that look on his face of, right, that was real. He really kind of freaked out, but at the, you know, one of the great professional actors that he is, he just rolled with it. But he's an old school actor from, you know, he's got a lot of great films in his history, classically trained. And there was talk about how the sequences when Regan just goes off on this rant of profanities, that Max von Sydow, the gentleman that he is, he was kind of like, oh my.
Oh my.
Oh, those words from such a little girl. He was kind of like taken aback by it. I mean, that just shows the acting ability that young Linda Blair, what a great actress she was, even from back then. I mean, she did a slamming job. And then, of course, another infamous scene that really, and again, think back to 1972, and you're sitting in the theater, and you're watching this, okay?
73.
Oh, my bad. 73.
73.
That's
All
right.
right.
That's why you're here, to keep me straight.
Only other reason.
Yeah, there's that really delicate scene that where Regan masturbates with a crucifix.
Yeah, that one came out of left field, man. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah. Again, I was exposed to the film in bits and pieces growing up, and but I don't recall that scene until like I said, I was like in my early 20s when I first sat down and watched from beginning to end, and that scene pops up, and my jaw dropped. I'm sitting thinking, what the F am I watching? Yeah. What is this? And it was shocking, it was grotesque, and it was horrifying. And the way they accomplished that sequence, I mean, it was a very delicate sequence to shoot, of course, because of what, you know, the subject matter.
Yeah, what it was showing, or not showing, but assuming.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
And they kind of showed you straight up. And but to achieve that effect, they had a sponge soaked in fake blood, and they had it taped, they had it rigged to her belly in the lower region. So when she starts poking at it, the blood starts to kind of come out and stuff. And yeah, I mean, you know, you could, again, William Peter Blatty, who wrote the original book, obviously it was in the film. You know, he stayed true to his source material. Well, it was his.
Right.
And in most cases, stuff like that would just be taken out. I mean, you look at historically like It.
Okay. I know
And-
what you. I think I know where you're going with this one.
Right.
Yeah.
The orgy
The
with
orgy
the kids.
with the kids. Yeah. Where they turn into adults, and I'm just like, there's other ways to do this.
Yeah. And that was in the original novel.
Never mentioned in the movies.
Never mentioned. Yeah. And so it was surprising that they got away with this. I mean, and we'll talk about how they got away with it later on. The fact is that when this film was given to the Academy, well, what they do is they submit it to the MPAA for ratings. And literally you got some censor people, MPAA executives, and they'll sit there in a room and they'll watch the movie and they will literally sit down with a list. Okay, he said the F word once, twice, 3 times. Oh, booby shot. Okay, we have breast showing. God damn it. He said, God damn it. That's another one. And they keep going. They make this list. And based on that list, they give it a rating.
Okay.
So obviously this movie does not have a lot of profanity, but oh my God.
But what it shows and what it's talking about and what it is about, it's gnarly to see.
Yeah. And so in its initial submission to the MPAA, it got an X rating.
Oh, I wonder why.
Yeah. And
This is a movie you take your grandkids to.
oh
the
yeah,
family.
yeah, it's such a family film. It's like, hey, let's watch somebody head spin and
I mean, if you really think about it, like if you really squint your eyes and don't think about it too much, it's a family movie about a motherly love and how much she will go to protect her daughter.
yes, and exactly. Oh, you know what? My heart, it's so heartwarming. I never thought of it that way.
I know. It's like Hachi.
Oh, it was just like that one. Yeah, absolutely. With the little doggy
The
there.
little dog, yeah.
But yeah, it got that X rating. And now the problem with that is that back then, I mean, they've since kind of adjusted the rating systems that, because X rating has such a negative connotation, or the connotation is that it's an adult film, like pornography. And so what happened is a lot of theater chains will not show an X-rated film. So you lose a lot of money. And it doesn't, so studios have to recut their films and try to get at least an R, which I'm sure they knew they were going to get an R.
Right. I mean, there was no fighting, even a PG-13. That was a no-go.
Yeah. So after that, the head of the MPAA, Aaron Stern at the time, he got wind of this and he said, you know what? I'm going to check this film out. Yeah, I'm going to look at it myself. I'm going to give it my own opinion. Let's check this out. He watched it by himself. He then gave William Friedkin a call, and he basically said, you're going to get your R rating and you don't have to change a thing.
He was bought out.
He was
There's
bought.
no other way to say it, man. He was bought out.
But his reasoning was that this is it's an important film, and wow, it is an important film. It's cinematic history that was made.
Yeah. I mean, to be able to have that sort of insight for years to come, this will be an important film to let show.
And not many people realized that at the time, that this would be such a classic, such an important cinematic moment in film. And of course, the other special effects that really fantastic is the spider walk.
Now, see, I don't remember the spider walk when I watched it the first time around or the second time.
Oh, okay. So this is one quick and the sequence it runs like maybe 3-4 seconds. Which, if you watch it, you go, "That's 4 seconds too much," because it'll freak you out to the bone. It's so scary. Where you see Regan, arched backwards, walking down the stairs like a spider. Yeah, and so they filmed this in 1970, 71 when they were in production. They filmed the sequence, and they had the actress. She was a former college gymnast and a contortionist. And so they put on a harness and had her contort backwards, and they hung her over the stairs and they go, okay, walk down the stairs. Boom, 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 boom. They filmed it. It looked like she was on a harness.
Okay.
Now
so it didn't look fluid enough to really say, no, this could have been done by a person.
Exactly. So what they did was, they did have the ability to kind of like erase the wiring and all that stuff back then, but it wasn't convincing enough. And Friedkin decided to just keep it out. Let's not do this. It's funny though, because years later, I mean, this was Hollywood, legend, or that he had filmed this scene, and Friedkin was like, no,
No such thing exists.
Yeah, there are no aliens, and
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
right, right. And there was only one shooter in the Kennedy assassination, right? So years later, archivists going through Warner Brothers, they found the shot.
No, but it doesn't exist.
But it doesn't exist. And his reaction, Friedkin's reaction was, "Oh, that one. You know what? Yeah, now I remember. We did shoot it.
We did. Yeah.
So when he got a chance to do a restoration back in 2000, Friedkin reinserted the scene, and of course with CGI, very subtle CGI, just enough, made the scene work. And it's amazing. The 2000 version, as we mentioned before, is the version you've never seen. It's pretty much the same film. He doesn't rearrange in his version. All he does is add that scene and a couple of very subtle little flashes here and there that are very effective and really affect you on a psychological level. So, in my opinion, personally, Friedkin just improved upon a masterpiece of a film and it really made it a lot more effective. Also, and talk about makeup and special effects. Of course, Linda Blair. Her possessed look and her cuts on her face were just amazing. The pale blue skin and the eyes and all that stuff. And
it's not only the eye, but it was the stare.
Oh, the stare.
The stare that just gazed deep into your soul and told you all your sins.
Yeah. And what's interesting is Max von Sydow, who plays Father Merrin, in the opening of the film, it's like years before. He's much younger. And so for the film, they had to age him, make him look older. So in most of the scenes, he's actually wearing more makeup than Linda Blair is because he's aged up.
Oh, okay. What you mean?
Which is pretty cool. But so he would spend hours. The guy was only, 44 years old at the time. And again, he'd have
to look well over 60-something.
Yeah, he had to spend like hours every morning. It wasn't one of those things like in this scene, you're doing a flashback. No, the whole movie, he's an old guy, and so he was very professional and gentleman about it. He even talked about Dick Smith, who was the makeup magician on this, called him the best of the world. He was, he acknowledged this guy is amazing. So outside of the good stuff. Okay, which by the way, sidebar, what we just mentioned, Dick Smith did win an Academy Award.
There was no other competition that year. I don't know who else was nominated for best makeup or effects. It doesn't matter. Irrelevant.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's irrelevant, but I'm just saying the competition could have been great, but it's leagues ahead.
Yeah, you're up for best special effects that year, and you just go, you know what? I'm not even taking the limo. Yeah. Another thing that was during production that was very notable was that because of the subject matter of the film, that many believed eventually that there was a curse on the film.
There is a curse.
Yeah, well, if you believe that sort of thing, yeah.
I believe that sort of thing, man. There is a curse on that thing.
And well, as a result, it caused delays. I know one of the film sets burned down mysteriously.
Mysteriously?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Satan came in and it's gone on fire.
Burn, baby.
Yeah. And pretty much the film went from a $2.5 million budget to, it ultimately cost the studio about $12 million to make. It shot that budget huge. Oh. Yeah.
You say, okay, double it, $5 million from 2.5. That's a jump.
Yeah.
You add another $10 million to the budget.
Oh yeah. Well, you're always going to have budget overruns in a lot of films. You'll go, let's say $5 million, it'll go $8 million. But because of all this, and for example, Ellen Burstyn, remember the scene, the infamous crucifix sequence?
Yeah.
And she's screaming and everything.
And she gets tossed to the wall, right?
Yeah. She was attached to a harness. And so there is a stunt trainer or something, a stunt person that has the rope to the harness that's supposed to pull on it, and that shoots her backwards. He pulled a little too hard, and she ended up injuring her back. She fractured. She fractured her lower spine.
Sure. What's the one below a fracture?
A little fracture?
No. A sprain.
A sprain, okay.
A sprained back. That's still pretty messed up. It can cause
Imagine
swelling.
a fracture.
A fracture.
I think it was her coccyx, the little bone at the tailbone.
Right.
It was.
I failed medical school.
Okay.
I don't know.
So, and that, of course, and that was right before the head spinning sequence as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that scene was just chock full of fun. And that definitely delayed production for the film. And of course, Burke, the director in the film, he plays the director. I forgot his name.
The actor who plays the director.
McGowan. He was, first of all, he was amazing. And of course, in the film, his character dies mysteriously. Shortly after the film, he died.
And yet you say there's not a curse.
Mm-hmm. It was like about a week after. The film wasn't even complete. He just completed his scenes. And he completed his death scene, and shortly after, he died. Creepy.
Okay, in a non-comedic way, it's kind of like as if, okay, we're done with our film. You may leave now. Life.
Yeah.
You may leave life.
For good.
Yeah. Man, that's tough.
Yeah. I mean, I would have quit that, that once there was a vibe on the set that Satan's hanging out as a crew member, I'm like,
I'm out. Man.
I'm out of there.
Done.
Right.
I mean, that wasn't the only movie. I mean, Poltergeist also had a curse. The Omen also had a curse. And these are not like, they're B flicks. These are A tier.
Yeah. There was also another actress who passed away, just like her character in the film before the film was finished. Also, there was a crew member who was a night watchman, and he was the operator of the refrigeration system, for Regan's room. Mm-hmm. He died, along with, check this out, the assistant cameraman. He just had a baby, and the baby passed away. Yeah.
That's...
Linda Blair's grandfather died during the first week of production.
Okay. That one could be just, natural causes, the grandfather.
But wait, there's more. Max von Sydow, he had to return to Sweden after his first day on the set because he learned his brother had just died. Coincidence? Okay, well, let's keep going. Jason Miller, who plays the priest,
right? The
young priest, his young son, Jason Patrick, nearly died while he was his father. They were out at the beach, right? And a motorcycle unexpectedly came out of nowhere and hit young Jason and almost killed him. He survived because Jason Patrick is the older brother in The Lost Boys. And he was also in that really crappy movie, Speed, too. But,
Cruise control.
But he almost died. And, it came to the point where there was this one crew member who basically was quoted as saying, that he felt that they were just playing around with something they shouldn't be playing with, because there was actual recitals of the rites of exorcism. They were real.
Yeah, the power of Christ compels you.
Yeah.
I mean, those are actual,
Yeah, you got some actor playing a priest and he's yelling, the power of Christ compels you, get out of here. And you got real spirits going,
hey man, you better relax right now.
Yeah, we're on a film set. We're unionized. You
need to talk to the union rep before you do any of this.
Right.
Then I just imagine a scene like in Beetlejuice where they're going to the underworld.
Oh, man. But, also, within the casting, though, the first one, it was a very difficult film to cast for the producers, but the first couple of who were cast were Blair and Bernstein, the mother and daughter. But the other roles, like for Father Karras, they considered Marlon Brando, Jack Nicholson. Can you imagine Jack Nicholson? The power of Christ compels you. I just want to see the World Series. Right? That would have been interesting. Hey, you know what?
I'm not going to exercise you.
I'm just going to kill you. You know what? Kubrick and Nicholson.
Boom.
Already
a different take on The Exorcist.
Take my money. Paul Newman was approached or considered. And finally, they went with Stacy Keach, who signed on to play Father Karras. But ultimately, they went with lesser-known actors. My guess, bring down the budget. Stacy Keach at the time was a highly paid actor, but they ended up going with Jason Miller, who had never been an actor. He was an acclaimed playwright.
For not being an actor, he held up pretty well.
Yeah, so they got rid of Stacy Keach, and they went with Jason Miller. One of the problems is that Stacy Keach, for those of you who don't know, just Google him, and you'll recognize him. He's an actor of physical stature, and that's what they initially wanted. Jason Miller is kind of a smallish kind of guy, and he's kind of like hunched over and stuff. So they didn't want him for that role because he was unassuming. So Miller really wanted the part. Mm-hmm. And he worked it. He worked it, and he eventually got it.
Hey, you really want me? You know what? Let me just talk to you for a quick minute as Father Harris or Harris. Yeah. Let me just talk to you for a minute as Father Harris. You know, you'll want me. I know you'll want me.
Yeah, and it worked. And if you look at the film, Father Harris is he's struggling with his faith, mm-hmm. and he's weakened by his loss of faith. You know, and of course the loss of his grandmother.
Yeah, his grandmother.
Yeah, and so, but you see that in his face. You see it in his physicality. He's kind of like just a shrunken man, and it worked. I don't think it would have worked with Stacy Keach, as great an actor as he is. This was really lightning in a bottle, casting Jason Miller. But what's interesting is Jason Miller was very well known for play at the time on Broadway called that Championship Season. And it was later made into a film in the early 80s, I believe, early to mid 80s, starring Stacy Keach, who he replaced for The Exorcist. I don't know if that was...
Life finds a way.
Life finds a way. But again, Miller really hadn't done much. He'd done some stage acting, but he was not really an actor at the time. But the casting of Jason Miller and Max von Sydow, it was just a dream cast. I mean, they were just perfect in this film. And again, so now we'll talk about, like we mentioned earlier, Imagine Yourself in 1972. What was it?
73.
Okay. 73.
73.
Okay. You know, imagine watching it through those eyes. So the movie opened on December 26th. Merry Christmas.
Oh,
a day after Christmas.
I was trying to think, like, wait. Why?
Yeah, and which is
I'm
interesting.
not in a spooky spirit anymore, man. I'm in a jolly, holly, good spirit.
Yeah, you know, you're playing with your toys and everything, and, you know, unwrapping presents, and hey, what do we do after Christmas? Let's go for an exorcism.
Okay, yeah, sure. Why
Yeah,
not?
on the holiest time of the year. But as a lot of people noted, pretty much the cinematic world, it all hell broke loose. I mean, there were cases in many theaters where audience members, people watching it, they screamed and ran out of the theater. And this was only during the sneak previews.
How far would they have gone into the movie? They would have probably gone far into the movie just because it's not to like maybe the half of the movie where you start seeing some creepy stuff.
What's the last quarter that all hell breaks loose?
Yeah, it was trippy.
What's great about the film, what I've always loved about it, is that for the most part, it's a normal looking film. There's not much of a score. I don't think there is a score.
No.
Except for Tubular Bells, which is the opening music. It's a very normal kind of environment. It's very realistic as far as film goes. And I think by putting in the mindset vicariously in this world that seems normal, everything's good, and boom. I mean, it's kind of snuck up on you, and then you just get punched in the face. It's a slow build up, but then it just gets ratcheted up.
Yeah, it's like a car crash, man. You're driving down the freeway doing 60, and you're thinking, oh, everything's fine. I can see the sunset from here, mountains in the background.
Right.
And then a motorcycle comes up right behind you, but that motorcycle is carrying a semi-truck, and that semi-truck is secretly Optimus Prime, and he's yelling at you, "All hail Decepticons!"
Okay, that was pretty descriptive.
Yeah, vivid. Yeah, I know.
That was very vivid. Well, that's exactly how it felt. And I mean, hell, even when I watched it for the first time in a real sit down, the studio was not very confident in this film. It was a horror movie. It went way over budget. Most horror movies they didn't do that well at the time. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a huge market for this. So they did not do advanced screenings for critics. Now, usually that is a sign when a studio says we have a stinker, let's not give the critics a chance to jump in there and tell everybody ahead of time that it's a stinker. So they don't do. All they did was,
Hey, this is the new movie. Come watch it this Friday.
right, exactly. So all they had was a sneak preview. Where all, it was the audience, and they had the studio executives in the audience watching the film. Movie's over in this sneak preview. Because some people scream, some people said, screw this, I'm out of here. The movie's over. And usually, for the most part, these movies end, and before everybody starts walking, the studio executives, they get up and walk out, and they'll go into the lobby or whatever. They did not leave. These executives sat in their seats stunned and looked at each other, and like one looked at the other and said, what the F did we just watch? And
What did we greenlight?
what did we greenlight? And I'm sure that they had, maybe they realized what they had, something special there. I mean, they even had, I don't know if this was set up to sell the film, but a lot of theaters would have an ambulance standing by outside.
Yeah, that's just promotional, man.
Yeah.
You pay a little money for the private ambulances.
Yeah, it's like, hey, just in case you can't handle the film, and people go, oh, I don't know, I got to do, and they go in. So it helps sell the film. But there was a lot of controversy about the, within the film. I mean, there was a lot of Catholic viewers in the audiences. They had, as a result of watching this film, they experienced, this is how crazy, they experienced a spiritual crisis just watching this film.
I don't blame them. I can understand why, man. Completely.
Yeah, well, they have a psychiatrist documenting cases of, check that, they call it cinematic neurosis.
Cinematic neurosis.
Triggered by the film. But you know what? All that, it was all good, because that just helped sell the film. The more noise you make about something, the more negativity, as groups, you try to boycott a film, people are going to go, well, what's all the noise about? And we're going to go.
It's like the one saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah. And it was a lot just negative or these stories that were popping up. I mean, they were almost urban legend kind of levels.
Friend Tom tells you, I went to go watch The Exorcist this Friday, and the lady fainted 2 rows in front of me.
Yeah,
Then the other friends are saying, man, you're full of it. The movie can't make anybody faint. Then they go watch, and they're like, oh my God, the lady next to me
she died.
Oh my God.
She died.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how these stories were just mounting on top of each other. But it was all good, because the movie, again, they weren't really, aside from not screening it for critics, it opened in only, 30 cities? So, or like, it had a small release, had a slow rollout. Usually a slow rollout back then was, okay, get word of mouth going, because we know this is a good film. We're going to slowly roll it out. No, in this case, they just showed it in like 24, 25 screens, and that was it. They weren't planning to roll it out anymore, because they thought they had a stinker on their hand. Again, you had a budget of $12 million, which was about $86 million. That's not a cheap movie.
That's expensive.
Yeah. The film grossed about $2 million in its first week, which is about $9 million now. And it just set records at each theater with an average of about $70,000, which is $300,000 today in modern movie prices. And because it was in such limited release, people in other states or other cities were like, we want to watch it too. We heard this movie is so shocking and horrible.
Show us the movie. Show us the movie.
Right. So yeah, they started increasing its rollout in more theaters. Back then, movies can stay in the theater for like a year or two. Now it's like 3 months, and then it's on Netflix or Disney Plus.
Yeah.
But back then, movies will stick around for about a year. In its total take, okay, in its release time, it made over $428 million, which is about $1 billion with a capital B.
B.
Since it was a horror film and it had gone way over budget and it didn't premiere, that's how, they just kind of rolled out. But it turned out to be cinematic gold for them, a strategy that later on would be implemented by, they would just kind of roll it out slowly, let the word of mouth build. Critically, on the other hand, it was kind of a mixed bag. Some critics thought it was just an abomination. I think it was called The New Republic. They wrote that this is the scariest film I've ever seen. And sure enough, he was right on point. Joe Dante, the director of Gremlins, Piranha, The Howling, he called this an amazing film and one that is destined to become a horror classic.
And look at it now.
He nailed it.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy, yeah, he directed The Howling, so he knows horror. You know, they also, some critics call it it was shallow, not to be taken seriously. So it was a mixed bag, but it was the controversies and the viewer reactions and the hyperbole and the urban legends that started coming out of this film that just made this a huge hit. And again, and yeah, you know, a huge hit. You have a lot of films that have since then tried to duplicate unsuccessfully. I think the closest, I mean, what was the movie The Conjuring? They had a pretty intense exorcism sequence in that film.
Yeah.
But,
you know what's funny? I think The Conjuring also had the same tactic where they would put ambulances aside, say, some people have found this movie to be too disturbing. If you seek medical attention, go outside.
That. Yeah, and apparently it worked.
Yeah.
It was a huge hit. I mean, every Conjuring film after that in the Conjuring universe is just garbage.
Yeah.
I didn't.
La Llorona was arguably the worst. Of the
Oh, that
bunch.
was the worst.
Was
No,
horrible.
The Devil Made Me Do It.
I haven't seen that one.
Look that up. It's, you know what? You want to mess with you just want to watch something horrible and be bad to yourself, watch that one.
No, thank you. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I need to spend time doing those things.
So, to this day, I mean, the legacy, I mean, since its initial release in 73,
73. There you go.
you've had multiple sequels. You have The Exorcist 2, The Heretic, came out in 1977. It was a strange film. It was directed by John Borman, who also directed Excalibur in 81. It was a strange movie. The Exorcist 2. It was kind of weird and kind of cringy. And it just didn't work and it fell flat. And it was a huge bomb at the box office. And then there was 1990 was The Exorcist 3 with George C. Scott. And that was directed by William Peter Blatty himself, the writer of the original novel.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't that bad. I seen it and it wasn't great. Nothing can ever come close to the original film, the first film, but it was all right. It wasn't horrible. And then William Peter Blatty went on ahead. It wasn't until 2016 that Blatty redid The Exorcist 3 that was closer to his novel source. And he called it The Exorcist 3 Legion. So basically that's the director's cut. I have not seen it, but I've heard it's better than the original.
Than the original third.
In 1990,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
And now here's where it gets interesting. In 2004, they released a film called The Exorcist, The Beginning. Now this was directed by Rennie Harlin, who directed such great films as Cliffhanger, Deep Blue Sea, and Die Hard 2.
Okay.
Damn good director for action and fun. How he fits into The Exorcist, well, I don't know. You know, some directors can make that change over, you know, that crossover. It was not a very good film. So here's the thing. The Exorcist, The Beginning, is actually a remake of a film that the studio did a year before. Follow me, okay? In 2003, they went into production for a film called Dominion, prequel to The Exorcist. Now, this was directed by Paul Schrader. He did Cat People, American Gigolo, Light of Day with Michael J. Fox. He's an okay director, in my opinion. But once it was done, the studio got a screening of it, and they just lost their crap. This film was bad. It was slow. It was boring. And there was nothing salvageable about this film. So they were so enraged with what Schrader gave them that they said, you know what? This is not going to see the light of day.
Vault it.
Yeah.
Never to see anything.
Yeah. So they shelved it and they decided, let's start from scratch. And they went on ahead and remade it with Rennie Harlin. And that was The Exorcist, The Beginning, which was just as bad. So,
well, I mean, it's kind of like eating like a poo sandwich, but then a poo sandwich with mayo.
Yeah, and that one had
a
mayo.
little bit of taste.
Well, you know, the Rennie Harlin version, it had that mayo in it. Maybe a little mustard. But it was still bad. So it got crushed by the critics upon its release in 2005 that they decided, okay, let's try to make some of our money back here. people know about the fact that we had to reshoot the entire film. Why don't we release that original cut? Try to make some money back.
Let's show you how bad the first one is.
I don't know what they were just trying to make money back. So I think it was the following year, they released that original cut that Schrader did. And people did not react the way they want. It was just as bad. And so they made some money on it. People were just curious to say, well, what does poop with mayonnaise and mustard taste like? So
let's go watch.
Yeah, let's go watch. And it did just equally as bad. What's interesting is that when studios do that, when they'll shelve a film, they'll usually write it off as a loss and collect the insurance money. They did not, lucky for them, they didn't do that. Because when a studio says this film, we're not going to do it, we're not going to release it, it's cut a loss, get the insurance check, that movie legally can no longer be shown in any which way, shape, or format.
Got you. Okay.
Batman, the Batgirl movie from HBO and Warner Brothers, that's what they did. So that movie will never see the light of day. So luckily they didn't do that here. Not a great film, but for cinematic history and to archival purposes, to look back at this, I'm glad they released the original version. I've seen both of them, and yeah, they're both pretty bad. I don't know which is worse. One, it's boring and it's kind of like strange, and Rennie Harlin, being an action director, like he did Cliffhanger and Die Hard 2, he kind of throws a little energy into this one where there's because the story about those two films is basically Father Merrin's backstory.
Okay.
And it's mentioned in The Exorcist about, I think it was Mexico or South America,
where he's doing the exorcism on the
kid, and the kid dies. Yeah. And so that's what this film was about. Great idea. And I don't know how they can screw it up, but they did twice, not once. So that was the story behind those two. And of course, they had 2016 through 18, there was a TV series on Fox starring Alfonso Herrera and Ben Daniels, it was pretty good.
It wasn't bad, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. And then, of course, we have in 2023, come this year, I believe it's around Halloween.
Has to be around Halloween.
Has to be. David Gordon Green, director of the Pineapple Express and the new Halloween films.
Pineapple Express.
Yes, great film. He is bringing The Exorcist back, and it's called The Exorcist. And this is, according to him, it's not a reboot. I'm sorry, I don't like using that word, right? It's not a remake. It is an actual continuation, like 40 some odd years later, of the original first film.
See, that's nice.
Kind of like we did with Halloween.
Yeah.
So it's a direct sequel to The Exorcist. And it stars Ellen Bernstein, who was the mom in the original Exorcist. So she's back for the first time since 1973 in the role that she did. Yeah.
Right.
So it's exciting. I think it's going to be great. David Gordon Green is kind of 50-50 with me. I like what he did with the new Halloween films, 2018 and Halloween Kills. Halloween Ends, I'm not on the fence on that one because I'm completely on the other side of the fence. That movie was bad. I don't know what the hell was going on there. But yeah, it's exciting. So, the Exorcist legacy continues through sequels, through television series, and who knows? From what I understand, this Exorcist film coming out this year is going to be part of a trilogy.
So we're going to get more
Exorcist.
More added to the history. Nice.
Yeah. So hopefully he maintains the tonality and the flavor of the original Exorcist films that really made it so unique and special in a dark, horrific, macabre way. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Let's start winding it down. What do you say?
All right, let's relax. Let's take it down. Let's watch some cartoons or something to get the mind off of The Exorcist.
And have a shot of rum.
Or 2.
Or 3. Outstanding. So again, we hope you've enjoyed our episode and hope you join us next week. Remember, please help to support the podcast by giving us a 5-star rating and leave a great review. Or another way you can support us is you can simply subscribe and follow us on either Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Audible, Boomplay, or wherever you get your podcast fix. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and on our YouTube channels for updates or any announcements. All of the links are in our show notes. And also remember, you can contact us directly by email. We'd love to hear from you and get your feedback. Once again, support us. And we thank you so much for your support and listening. Remember, tell a friend, tell an enemy.
Tell your dog.
No, you told your dog already last time.
I did. Oh, tell your card, Christine.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
All right. Again, thank you, and hope you enjoyed the episode. I'm Joe.
I'm Carlos.
And this is the Filmjoe podcast,
Where film talk happens.